Okay, human growth hormone. Why it's important, what role it plays in this whole pathway of steroidogenesis, the synthesis of testosterone, and how do we shoot it through the fucking roof? How do we optimize it, right? So, before I begin, what's my authority on the subject? When I was 17, I looked like this, right? So instead of developing like a man, I developed like a fucking woman after puberty, and I had to reverse those, shit genetics that I got, as well as the shit lifestyle that I lived. And I managed. Now I have 1,500 nanograms of the nanograms per deciliter testosterone, almost, right? So caveman fucking levels. So I destroyed the fucking thing, and I did it naturally. I don't know anybody else who has that level naturally. So tremendous. But through the years of doing it, through fucking years of the first 4 hours of the day learning and then implementing and then doing all those little, interventions, lifestyle, buying every single supplement under the sun, doing like 6 months without ejaculating to see what effect it'll have. Through all that shit, I've developed some unbelievable insights, right? And I'm sharing them here with you. So without further ado, if you identify with this thing, if you wanna, if this is one of the goals you have to fucking shoot this, to increase the production of this, then you've come to the right place, man. You've come to the right place. So I want you to minimize this video. I want you to hit the subscribe button, because you're not going to get content like this anywhere. You're going to have these little like pseudo-scientists talking about like research papers and underlining things with highlighters and stuff. But did they actually do, years of this? I don't know, bro. I don't know. Have they been guinea pigs for years? That's for you to decide. So, and if you have friends who you think will benefit from this content, make sure to share it with them, because the truth is, like, YouTube, this platform doesn't like this type of, masculinity content and optimizing testosterone, because this day is misogynistic and whatever. Yeah, fuck them. Anyways, so what's the important role? So essentially what human growth hormone does, one of its main functions is its role in metabolism, right? Metabolism. Now, what is metabolism? Metabolism has two functions, right? One of them is anabolism, right? Anabolic steroids, anabolic compounds. What is insulin? It's an anabolic hormone, right? Which means the creation, right? The creation of new, or the building of already existing cells, tissues, whatever, okay? And the second one is catabolism, right? Catabolism. So let's talk about anabolism first. Now, protein synthesis. Human growth hormone plays a role in many, not just protein synthesis, but also bones, bone mineral synthesis and like development of bone. Tremendous, right? Like the growth of the heart and all that shit. Tremendous. But we're not going to talk about these things. We're going to talk about the things that are applicable, right? We're going to talk about the things that are going to make your life better. Because as I always say on this channel, the goal is for you not to have 1,500 nanograms or never ever drink a glass of wine ever in your life. No, that's not the goal. The goal is to live a tremendous life. The goal is to live a full life full of experiences, is to live according to your biological makeup. It's to be masculine. It's to be fucking, and this is the pathway to it, right? Optimizing human growth hormone, and it's the goal is to it's to live that life. It's to have those energy levels, to have that libido, to have that, to fulfill your body's needs, to live according to what your body wants you to do, okay? And this is one of the ways you do it, because human growth hormone, it's a fucking golden substance, man. So protein synthesis. So I know what you're thinking, protein synthesis, that's to do with the muscles, right? But muscles don't increase testosterone. They do. Because essentially skeletal muscles, they have a lot of, they're chock-a-block full of androgen receptors, especially the ones on your traps, the ones on your chest, the lats, the shoulders. Do you know what I mean? What that means is that there is, we can have a lot of testosterone, but not so many receptors for it, and the signaling is still poor. We need a lot of receptors as well as the molecule itself. As I always say, if you have ships, right? This is a ship. You need the ports in order to, to deposit the cargo. And our ports are the receptors. So protein synthesis. But protein synthesis doesn't only refer to skeletal muscle. It also refers to other proteins, right? For example, insulin is a protein, right? Human growth hormone is a fucking protein. What about this whole thing, right? What about this protein, this is called the star protein, right? Steroidogenic acute regulatory protein. It's what takes the cholesterol from the blood into the testes, into the adrenals. It needs ATP, but it's a protein. It needs to be synthesized. It's used up, right? Protein. What about this, C3PO? Well, it's not called that, but we're referring it to as that because it's easy to remember. C3PO is the rate-limiting enzyme in this reaction, right? A is our base, B is our product, our testosterone, X is our enzyme, C3PO. This controls, this is the rate-limiting enzyme. This is a protein. This needs to be synthesized. Do you know what I mean? The better protein synthesis, the more efficient it is, the more you're going to make, the more, the more of it you're going to have available, the more of its job it's going to do, right? So protein synthesis is an extremely important, think of protein as a house, right? Not only do you have the bricks, not only do you have the walls and stuff and the insulation and the windows and all that shit, but you also have the hydraulics, right? You have which is like basically the cardiovascular system. You also have the electricity, right? Think of it as like your neurotransmitters and the transporters and the sort of, the gateways and all that stuff. That's also protein. So protein synthesis. What about catabolism, right? So what is catabolism? It's the breakdown of cells. It's the breakdown of cells into their nutrients in order to make energy, right? So let's talk about protein breakdown. Now, it just so happens that human growth hormone inhibits that. It lessens protein breakdown, right? So increased protein synthesis, decreased protein breakdown. That's great, especially when you're cutting, right? Summer's coming, 12% body fat, we have to cut. Protein breakdown is decreased. That means you can actually preserve more muscle that you built before. Tremendous. What about, right, increased lipolysis? Lipolysis, what is lipolysis? It's the creation of fatty acids from our cells, from our adipose tissue, right? Essentially, the fat you have on your body is put into fatty acids, and fatty acids are in the blood. What about, which is increased, human growth hormone increases this. What about beta oxidation, right? Beta oxidation, what is beta oxidation? It's when the liver takes those fatty acids and it makes energy out of them. It makes acetyl-CoA. What is acetyl-CoA? It's a precursor to cholesterol, right? From acetyl-CoA, we have the production of endogenous cholesterol through the liver. And then we make, with LDL, it's in the blood, and then it gets, absorbed by the testes, and testosterone is made, right? All that to say, the compounds which control this metabolism, which control this whole function of the body, they will have a tremendous effect on all this, right? Because let's say you have a higher energy demand, right? Your body needs more energy, right? As I always say, my favorite metaphor, you're a Toyota Yaris, you optimize growth hormone, you optimize thyroid hormone by doing these things. What happens now? You become like an M4, right? Not only you burn 5.5 liters. So when you're a Toyota Yaris, you burn 5.5 liters every 100 kilometers. Now you burn 12 liters, right? Not only that, you can eat more food, etc., but your performance, bro. You have 550 horsepower, not 50. Do you know what I mean? So this is what it does. These hormones actually signal this behavior. So I hope I said enough, right? Optimizing this is extremely fucking important. Now let's talk about how do we actually do that. Human growth hormone and insulin share this one property. And that property is called functional antagonism. Now, what that means is that when we elevate insulin, that causes human growth hormone pulsations to be decreased. And this works vice versa as well, right? So when we decrease insulin, that will cause an increase in human growth hormone. And this is a key rule of this hormone, right? Similarly to like homeostasis and all the things I always talk about, this is kind of like the law of the secretion of the pulsation of human growth hormone. And, it's also kind of released in pulsations and stuff, but whatever. So everything we do in order to optimize it, we have to make sure we have a lowered insulin, a baseline insulin. The practical effects of this means that we always have to be in a fasted state. When we do all of these things that I'm about to talk about, we must make sure we're in a fasted state. Otherwise, the effects are going to be much less, right? Okay, perfect. So let's talk about the first lifestyle intervention or dietary intervention you can call, and that is intermittent. What the fuck, man? Intermediate. Intermittent fasting. Now, what is intermittent fasting? You're essentially not eating for 16 to 24 hours a day. So you're either eating one big meal or you're eating like 2 or 3 smaller, relatively smaller meals. But you're having a fasting period. Usually it's from 16 hours. Now, essentially, how human growth hormone really works is when you are intermittent fasting, you're not providing your brain with glucose, right? And your brain only runs on glucose or on ketone bodies. It can't run on fatty acids, right? Or on proteins. So when you don't have glucose running around your brain, which can cross the blood-brain barrier and provide energy for the brain, keep in mind 75% of your energy demands come from the brain, so it's an extremely important interaction. When you're intermittent fasting, you're not providing glucose to the brain, so the body is forced to make ketones to provide the brain with energy, otherwise it's going to turn off and you're going to be a vegetable. Do you know what I mean? So it has to force those fatty acids, what we talked about, right? Lipolysis, which is the creation of fat in the blood from adipose tissue, from fat cells, which you can see. It forces that, and it also forces the second process, which is the creation of ketones from those fatty acids, so that then those ketones can be used by the brain. And when it does that, it also makes sure that muscle is preserved. That's what I was talking about, the preservation of muscle, the decrease of protein breakdown. That's what human growth hormone does, okay? So when we fast, we increase those pulsations of human growth hormone. We increase how much of it is being produced, especially if you're producing less of it, if you have a deficiency in human growth hormone, okay? So intermittent fasting, between 16 to 24 hours, that's just going to increase your net pulsations of human growth hormone, okay? Tremendous. It also has a lot of interactions. For example, right, intermittent fasting, one of my favorite things it does is, because you're tricking your body to use the nutrients more efficiently, when you break your fast, right, you eat a big meal, for example, full of eggs, full of, fruits and all these things, right? You can also put all your supplements with that one meal. This will increase basically their bioavailability. It will increase the efficiency with which your body uses those nutrients. So you're going to increase these enzymes like C3PO. You're going to increase, this is an enzyme called HMG, which controls this reaction, right? The more HMG you have, it's called reductase CoA. The more HMG you have, the more acetyl-CoA is actually being made into endogenous cholesterol. So intermittent fasting is very, very good when it comes to these things, right? And it's also good for your mental clarity. If you want to get a lot of creative work done, if you want to, think about lions, right? Lions hunt when they're fasted, when they're hungry. And that's when they're at their best. Humans work the same way. We're best when we're fasted. We're strongest. Our brain works best, right? What happens when you eat? The blood is directed towards the gut, towards the stomach, and not towards the brain, not towards the skeletal muscles. So all these fucking bodybuilders which bring like little snacks and gummy bears to the gym, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, how old are you, man? Like 1.5. Okay, number 1 is intermittent fasting. Number 2 is sleep. So human growth hormone is released during the first phase of sleep, right? First phase is with PH, right? Phase of sleep. And remember what I said about functional antagonism with insulin, right? When you have insulin present in the system, when you fall asleep, it's going to decrease your human growth hormone production by 4.37%. In other words, entering sleep in a fasted state, right, will increase human growth hormone production by 4.37 times. This is a game changer, and it's very easy to do. When you eat a big meal, usually your insulin remains elevated for about 3 to 5 hours, right? It depends on the size of the meal. However, you can bring that down. You can bring that down to 2 to 3 hours simply by taking a 20 to 30-minute walk after dinner. And this is a game changer, right? Because not anymore do you have to eat your last meal at 6 or 5 or whatever. You can now eat your meal like a normal human being at 8, but just make sure to do that 30-minute walk, to walk those 5,000 steps, okay? And really, it's you're also going to realize there's a lot more interactions it has, right? Because essentially, talking about this for a while, let's look at your blood glucose. When you eat a meal, your blood glucose is elevated, then insulin is deployed and it brings the blood glucose down, but it crashes below baseline and it has to go back. Now here, there's these hormones called like glucagon, like cortisol, like adrenaline. These hormones are being released here to bring the blood glucose back to baseline, because our brain doesn't want to be neither above, neither below baseline. It wants homeostasis, right? It wants to be stable, our body. What happens when you're sleeping and your cortisol is released to bring back blood glucose levels? You're going to wake up with stress, with you're going to feel stress for no reason. It's going to fuck up your sleep. What happens with melatonin, right? Melatonin doesn't like blood glucose elevated. So if you have an elevated blood glucose level when you enter sleep because you ate ice cream as a late night snack because you're a dickhead, what's going to happen is your melatonin is going to be suppressed, right? Don't do that. Just, bro, eat 2 to 3 hours before you go to sleep. 2 to 3 hours. If it's a big meal, like crazy big meal, 3 hours, and go for a 30-minute walk. And then when you fall asleep, it's going to be good. You're not going to wake up starved because you have leptin sensitivity is fucked and ghrelin sensitivity. This is a very nice thing you can employ, right? So let's write that down. Entering sleep into a fasted state, 30-minute walk after dinner. And then eat 2 to 3 hours before bed. Tremendous. So that's number 2. Now we've optimized sleep. We've made sure that we have those growth hormone pulsations, and they're 4.37 times stronger than they would be if you entered with insulin present in the system, right? 1 and 2. Let's talk about number 3. Let me make some space over here. So now we're entering into the domain of like physical intervention. So let's talk about number 3, which is exercise. Now, no matter what form of exercise you choose, whether you do endurance training, whether you do high intensity interval training, whether you do resistance training, if you want to maximize, because growth hormone is released either way, but if you want to maximize the amount of growth hormone that is being released, there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, I've already said this 1,000 times, but train fasted state, right? Fasted state. That doesn't mean you have to eat on a 16-hour fast. No, you can eat on a 4-hour fast or a 3-hour fast. Essentially, don't eat gummy bears and go to the gym because your growth hormone is going to be suppressed. Fasted state. Number 2 is about temperature. So warm up, body temp before engaging in strenuous, I don't even know how to pronounce it, strenuous activity. I don't know if that's how you spell it. Now, that doesn't mean you warm up your little legs and you do these stupid things that, people do. You can do them, whatever. But before you actually start your heavy lifts, your lifts until failure, make sure your body temperature has gone up. Make sure you go on a treadmill with a hoodie on and sweat a little bit. Literally just sweat just the minimal amount, because that's how you know your body temperature has been elevated, okay? So warm up your body before engaging in strenuous activity. Number 3 is train for no more than 60 minutes. All right, it's between 60 and 75, but let's say that you're warming up for 10 minutes and whatever. train no more than 60 minutes. My workouts are usually around 45 to 15 minutes, right? If I do the complete workout with the abs and the neck exercises and all the little like stupidities that I do, it usually lasts between that long. But there are people who spend like 2 hours in the gym. Don't be like that person, because you're gonna fuck up your growth hormones, you know, your growth hormone pulsations. So number 3 is train for no more than 60 minutes in the gym. So yeah, that's about exercise. No matter what it is, it can be endurance, it can be high intensity, it can be strength training. Make sure you keep these things in mind, right? 60 minutes, warm up your body temperature and train in a fasted state. And again, it doesn't have to be 16-hour fast. It can be on a 4-hour fast, right? I just like to train on a 16-hour fast. Tremendous. So we have number 3 exercise. What about number 4? Let's talk about sauna. So you've probably heard that sauna increases human growth hormone pulsation, because, you know, these temperature fluctuations, this is what they cause. And this, in fact, is one of the most potent ways to optimize this. There are studies, there are 2 protocols that have actually been studied. There are 2 protocols which showed an increase by 1,600%, right? Increase. That's a 16-fold increase in human growth hormone pulsation. What are these protocols? So number 1, this one is like this one is brutal, but 1 day per week, there's this protocol which goes like this. You do 30 minutes in between 80 degrees to 100 degrees C, right? Then you take a 10-minute break and you repeat it again, right? And then again 30 minutes in 80 to 100 degrees C, right? So you have two repetitions. And you do this shit in the morning. And guess what? You do the same thing in the afternoon. That's 1 day per week. It's a fucking brutal thing. If you want to do that, fair enough. But this is really like pushing your body to the limits. So this is protocol number 1, and there have been 16-fold increases. Protocol number 2, which is the one I like most of all, is one where you do 3 days per week, one after the other, right? So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And what you do is 20-minute, 30-minute rest, and then 20-minute again, 20-minute, right? So you do 20, 30, 20. So in total, you spend 40 minutes in the sauna. This is doable. This isn't, you know, it still is difficult because most people spend 15 minutes in the sauna. But this is, you know, it's very doable. 20-minute, 30-minute, and 20-minute. And you do these 3 days in a week, one after the other, right? Yeah, I don't know how to say it. Like, yeah, just one after the other. So this is protocol number 2. However, with that being said, if you don't want to do 3 days in a week in a row, this is it, 3 days in a row. If you don't want to do this, because this is fucking brutal, nonetheless, after the first time in the sauna, after the first 20, 30, 20 minutes, there have been 3 to 5-fold increases of human growth hormone pulsation. So this is still powerful. This is still, you know, you can still leverage this extremely well. For example, you can do what most guys do, and in fact, I do it a lot of times, is you do 1 day where you're working out, you're doing full body, right? And another day you're doing sauna, whether it's 15-minute, 3 times 15 minutes, or you're doing 20, 30, 20, whatever. And then again, you're doing exercise and then sauna, exercise, sauna, right? This is very good, and it's good for recovery, right? It's all that. Or you do 3 days in a week, and for the other days you either rest or, you know, you do some workouts. You might do like workout, rest, workout. Yeah, now I forgot how many days we've done, but do you know what I mean? This is basically what it is. All that being said, the sauna will increase your human growth hormone by 16-fold, and the more intense the bout, the more increase there will be. Okay? That's all that there is to know. Sauna. Let's talk about number 5. Number 5 is, now we're talking about supplements. This is the last supplement, well, not the last, but the only supplement that I'm going to mention. And this supplement is called arginine, more precisely L-arginine. What is L-arginine? L-arginine is an amino acid, and it is produced naturally by our body, but it's nicely supplemented. And the dosage here is between 3 and 9 grams. And 6, 6 appears to be the sweet spot. And again, this should be taken on an empty stomach, on a fasted state. So whether it's the first thing you eat, right? It's like your, a supplement you eat on an empty stomach, or whether that's something you eat, 3 to 4 hours after, or 3 hours after you've ate a meal, if you've taken a walk after that meal to decrease the insulin. But arginine is definitely something that it has been shown to, to increase human growth hormone. Now, with that being said, you cannot pair these things together, right? So when you exercise and then you go into the sauna, it's not like it's going to have this is going to go on top of this. No, you can either get one or the other, or with arginine it works the same, right? So one thing you can leverage is, for example, let's say you work out in the evening or in the afternoon. You can take your L-arginine on an empty stomach, right? Because L-arginine actually has the peak growth hormone increase after 60 minutes, and then it goes down. Then you can, for example, go exercise or go in the sauna, and then you can eat, right? Use the post-anabolic window and eat your first meal full of, nutritious stuff, supplements, meats. Avoid plant toxins, which will decrease absorption, etc. I'm giving you the tools here. I'm not giving you the protocol, right? You can compose the protocol yourself, but for what I just said is an example protocol, right? Take your L-arginine, then remain fasted, work out, or go to the sauna, come back, use the anabolic window, have a huge meal with quite some carbohydrates, honey, fruits and stuff. Just avoid phytotoxins, take your supplements, go for a walk. Tremendous, right? So L-arginine. Another thing I want to say about L-arginine, so let me write 3 grams to 9 grams, right? Empty stomach. There's one thing that I have to say more. In fact, L-citrulline, L-citrulline becomes L-arginine in the gut, and it's actually much more bioavailable. It's much easily absorbed. So instead of L-arginine, you can buy L-citrulline, and you can take smaller doses, whatever. You can take 3 grams instead of 6, but it is much more powerful. Or you can take L-citrulline malate, right? So L-citrulline or L-citrulline malate. What is L-citrulline malate? This is malic acid, right? It's basically an acid which is derived from a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, especially apples. So if you eat a lot of apples, fair enough. But if you, like me, you don't eat a lot of vegetables and you don't eat a lot of these fruits like kiwis, because I eat a lot of bananas and oranges, but they don't have that much citrulline. What you can do is you can leverage the citrulline malate, because the malate, right, malic acid, it's actually extremely important for metabolism. It upregulates, it makes glucose, it essentially makes it so that more ATP is made from the glucose you give to the cell, right? So you basically it's for metabolic efficiency, right? It's a great little compound. So there you go. So let's recap. First of all, we talked about fasting. We talked about how important, the human growth hormone is for preventing catabolism, for increasing protein synthesis, for increasing lipolysis, which is the fat breakdown, for increasing beta oxidation, which is actually the utilization of fat for energy, right? And as well as the formation of ketone bodies, which can be used by the brain. We talked about sleep. We made sure we optimized the human growth hormone pulsation, which occurs in the first phase of sleep, by entering sleep in a fasted state, easily by just employing a simple 30-minute walk after our last meal, after dinner, and then waiting 2 to 3 hours, depending on the size of the meal, before we go to sleep. We talked about exercise, right? So we're exercising in a fasted state, whether that means on a 16-hour to 24-hour fast, or that means simply on a 3 to 4 hour fast, right? After a walk, etc. But don't eat and then go to the gym, or don't bring fucking gummy bears to the gym. I swear to God, don't do that. We're going to warm up, right? And we're going to train for no longer than 60 minutes. And anything will do. Endurance training, high intensity, or resistance training. We talked about the sauna, right? There are 2 protocols which have this 16-fold increase. But simply going to the sauna and doing 15 minutes and then 15 minutes rest and doing that 3 times, three times, simply just that one thing, doing one single day, will increase your human growth hormone pulsation by 300 to 500%. So you don't have to, leverage the 16,000, or sorry, 1,600%. You can leverage the 300 to 500%. So these are the two protocols. And finally, we talked about L-arginine, which is a supplement which we can use to upregulate our human growth hormone pulsation. This has to be taken on an empty stomach, otherwise no human growth hormone will be synthesized because of its antagonistic role with insulin, right? So insulin has always have to be smaller. And we also talked about L-citrulline, which is a more powerful compound, which will actually produce more bioavailable L-arginine in the gut. And we talked about L-citrulline malate, which has malic acid. It has a lesser amount of L-citrulline present, but it has malic acid, which is tremendous for metabolic flexibility, metabolic efficiency, right? So, and if you eat apples, you can just fucking take L-citrulline. Do you know what I mean? Okay, we're done. We're done. I hope I told you how fucking important human growth hormone is, bro. People spend thousands injecting this, and like bodybuilders inject IGF-1, which is, what is it, like insulin, like growth factor 1, whatever the fuck, whatever. So, as tradition is, towards the end, all the dopamine addicts are gone, the killers are left, the cream of the crop. So, speaking to you guys, if you resonate with this, right? If you wanna use these things, if you wanna, make your own protocols, and if you wanna put that thing on steroids, if you don't wanna spend years looking into this and looking at research studies and trying things out for yourself to see if it actually works or whether it's bullshit, there's a link below. It's a link to my calendar. You can book a 30-minute call with me. The call is free. We're just basically getting to know each other. We're gonna talk about like your bottlenecks, your problems, what you're struggling in life. We're gonna get to know each other, ask each other a couple of questions. And if I feel like you have the character traits that are necessary to change your life in 3 months and essentially build habits which for the rest of your life will optimize your biology and optimize this whole testosterone, human growth hormone, and like your masculine energy and your sexual essence and your fucking psychology, and make you into a tremendous, make you into a tremendous man, both biologically, psychologically, and spiritually, then I'm going to make you an offer. So if that interests you, if you want to do that, the link's below. As I always say, I've struggled with so many of these fucking demons. I've beat so many demons that they know my name down there. So yeah, let's leverage this fucking thing, because I have this gift that I look at you, I speak to you, and I know instantly, intuitively, I know what you struggle with. I know your bottleneck. Bro. So I've said enough, I think. Take care. I'll see you next time.